the premise for the magazine has always been really storytelling, and photography being the vehicle for that, and not so much as a fictional storytelling, but more as a kind of report of issues and issues out there, and politics or environment, and the kind of standard fare of feature stories for photographers. So stories perhaps that came from agency, on the ground, working photographers on assignment, are now supplemented just as much with personal projects or works in progress, that do have a much wider appeal in some ways, and are much harder to pin down into one genre or another. There is kind of one criteria that I always select. Unfortunately, it's not really a quantifiable criteria, because of this ambiguity perhaps between journalism and art, and this new discussions in that direction. For me, I think the one thing that we want to be able to put our finger on is the intention of the photographer. There are lots of art projects that would like to have a photojournalism or a documentary background or integrity to them. That for me sometimes is after the fact. They'd like that once it's presented, once it's kind of explained to people. I think that the initial intention or the impetus for the photographer doing the story and what they want to achieve is really the judge of whether it's photojournalism or not. What the magazine has perhaps learnt over time is that it's not going to elevate the role of photojournalism by just showing you what photojournalism is. What we probably enjoy the most now is bringing in people that don't know what it is, but not just by defining it, but by just showing how these works can, resonate and appeal to them. And that process of people being engaged and wanting to know more, even on a very visceral level of just trying to understand, the photographer and what they're trying to tell you, is the process we want them to understand in terms of photojournalism as a whole. So yes, there's definitely room for local, personal, impressionistic stories. Again, it's coming back to the basic premise of storytelling. And also, I suppose, a slight admission on our part that the most conflict-related, grave, and pressing stories with intensity are not the only ones that have an importance, or perhaps reveal a real significance in an issue. And some of the quieter ones, on an emotional level, can also reveal that same significance, and in some ways connect with people in different or better ways. So I think we don't want to make a hierarchy of things that only look like photojournalism. It's how they work that really matters to me. There has been this premise, if you like, or this kind of starting point for a lot of photojournalism in our minds, that it is a Western view of the rest of the world. And that also kind of goes back to what I was saying before, in terms of things not necessarily having to be over there in terms of going to find the most intense story in another place. They can be the things that are at home in your living room, with your neighbor next door. And there is obviously these days a trend for this so-called vernacular photography. I may not really quite understand the term, but to be honest, I think that's quite it's an arts instigated view of the world, and it kind of suggests very, very implicitly that it's vernacular because it's not ours. That Indian photography by Indians on a period of India during the Raj is somehow vernacular, as though it's different. It's theirs as much as us photographing demos in Parliament Square is somehow our vernacular. I think that they are all points of view, and if you can get closer to a story that you want to tell because you come from a certain place and the story you want to cover is in somewhere else, and you bring a point of view, or for that matter, if you're from that same place and you know the story in a different way, that you have a different point of view to show. So I don't make a hierarchy really between the here and there, or the us and them. The thing that has opened up and has perhaps broadened the whole spectrum for photography is the accessibility and the ability of people from different places to be on a level playing field to send us the work, for us to reach them and them to reach us. And I think that works in a two-way street. So what we are seeing is just more points of view by more varied people with different perspectives, and that can only be good.